The neighborhood of Silver Oaks was the kind of place where the grass was measured with a ruler and the silence was guarded like a crown jewel. At the center of this suburban fortress lived Martha Gable, a woman who treated the Homeowners Association bylaws like a holy text. To Martha, a stray dandelion was a moral failing, and a trash can left out past 6 p.m. was a declaration of war. For 3 years, I had been the thorn in Martha's side. I wasn't a rebel by nature, but I was a detective with the city's major crimes unit. My lawn wasn't always perfect because I was often pulling 30-hour shifts, and my garage was my only sanctuary. When I bought the house, I'd converted the 3-car garage into a high-end man cave, complete with insulated walls, a professional-grade sound system, a pool table, and a bar stocked with local craft brews. It was a Friday night in mid-October, and the air was crisp. I was hosting our precinct's annual end-of-summer bash. It was a tradition born out of necessity, a way for us to decompress after a particularly brutal month of cases. There were about 30 people in my garage, detectives, patrol officers, the forensic lead, and even the assistant district attorney, Sarah, who was currently losing a game of darts to my partner, Miller. "You're leaning over the line, Miller." Sarah laughed, pointing at his boots. "That's just the tactical advantage of long legs." "Sarah, don't hate the player," Miller joked, throwing a bullseye that sent the room into a small cheer. The music was playing, classic, rock at a volume that stayed strictly within city ordinance levels, and the smell of slow-roasted brisket filled the air. We were all in plain clothes, hoodies, flannels, and jeans. To anyone looking in, we were just a bunch of middle-aged guys and girls blowing off steam. I noticed Martha's shadow before I saw her. She was standing at the edge of her driveway across the street, her arms crossed tightly over her floral print cardigan. She was staring at my house with a look of pure, unadulterated disdain. "Incoming," Miller whispered, nodding toward the driveway. "The Dragon of Silver Oaks is breathing fire tonight, Leo." "I'll handle it," I said with a sigh, setting down my soda. I walked down the driveway to meet her at the curb. "Evening, Martha. Everything okay?" Martha didn't smile. She never did. She held up a small handheld decibel meter. "You're at 62 decibels. Leo, the HOA limit for social gatherings after sunset is 55. And look at these vehicles. You have 6 cars parked on the street. This isn't a parking lot. It's a residential sanctuary. Martha, it's 8:30 on a Friday. Most of these folks will be gone by 10. We're keeping the door shut to muffle the sound. It's just a private get-together." "It's a party," she spat the word like it was poison. "And I see people drinking. I've already seen 2 people stumble. This is a public nuisance, a safety hazard, and a violation of the peace. I want them gone, or I'm taking further action. They aren't bothering anyone, Martha. Please just let it go for one night." She turned on her heel without another word. I knew that walk. It was the walk of a woman who was about to go file a report. I went back inside, shaking my head. "What did she say?" asked Detective Sarah. "The usual. We're too loud, too many cars, and she's taking action," I replied. "She knows we're cops, right?" Miller asked, reaching for a slider. "She knows I'm a cop. She thinks you guys are my low-life associates from the city?" I laughed. "She once asked me if I could clean up my social circle because she saw us cleaning our service weapons in the garage last summer and thought we were a gang." The party continued for another hour. We shared stories of the job, the ones we couldn't tell our families. We laughed about the time. Miller got his foot stuck in a picket fence during a foot chase, and we grew quiet when someone mentioned the sergeant we lost back in June. It was a sacred time for us. Then the blue and red lights began to dance against the closed garage door. The music was low, but the flashes were unmistakable through the frosted glass windows at the top of the door. The room went silent. We all looked at each other. "No way," Sarah whispered. "She actually did it?" I walked to the side door and peered out. 2 patrol cruisers were parked in front of my house, blocking the street. And there was Martha, standing on her lawn like a victorious general, pointing her finger at my garage. I opened the main garage door. The heavy motorized chain rattled as the door rose, revealing the scene like a stage curtain. Standing on the driveway were 2 young officers, Miller and Higgins. I knew them. They were rookies from the 3rd Precinct. They looked nervous. They had their hands on their belts, scanning the crowd. "Good evening, officers," I said, stepping forward with my hands in my pockets, leaning against the doorframe. "Sir, we received a 911 call regarding a massive disturbance," the younger one, Higgins, said. "Reports of an illegal gambling ring, public intoxication, and a potential dangerous element gathered in a residential zone." From across the street, Martha's voice rang out like a shrill bell. "That's him! That's the homeowner! He's the ringleader! There are dozens of them in there, probably armed. I saw them drinking and acting erratic. Arrest them!" I looked at Higgins. He looked at the garage. Behind me, 30 people had slowly stood up. They didn't look like criminals. They looked like what they were. Miller stepped forward, his silver detective badge hanging from a chain around his neck, which he'd tucked under his hoodie earlier. He pulled it out. "Evening, fellas," Miller said, his voice dropping into that unmistakable senior officer tone. "Detective Miller, Major Crimes. This is Detective Leo Vance's house." Higgins froze. His jaw practically hit the pavement. His partner, who had been reaching for his radio, stopped mid-motion. "Sir?" Higgins stammered. "And I'm Assistant DA Sarah Jenkins," Sarah said. Stepping out from behind the pool, table with a burger in one hand and her credentials in the other. "Is there a problem with our illegal gambling ring? Because I'm pretty sure we were playing Go Fish with my nephew earlier." One by one, the dangerous elements began to step into the light. Captain Henderson, the highest-ranking officer in the district, walked out wiping his hands on a napkin. He looked the two rookies up and down. "Who's your sergeant, son?" Henderson asked calmly. "Sergeant Miller, sir." "I mean Sergeant O'Malley, sir," Higgins squeaked. "Tell O'Malley that Henderson says you guys are doing a fine job responding to calls," the captain said, a small smirk playing on his lips. "But you might want to tell the dispatcher that this particular 911 emergency is a neighborhood dispute over a decibel meter. The rookies were mortified." "We are so sorry, Captain. We didn't know." The caller said there were gang-affiliated individuals and suspicious exchanges. I looked over at Martha. She had marched down her driveway and was now standing on the sidewalk, looking confused. She couldn't hear the quiet conversation, but she saw the rookies weren't pulling out handcuffs. "What are you doing?" Martha yelled. "Arrest them! Look at them! They're trespassing on our peace! Search the garage! I'm sure there are drugs." Captain Henderson looked at me, then at the rookies. "Officers, please. Go have a word with the complainant about the proper use of the 911 system. I believe false reporting and harassment are still on the books." "Aren't they?" "Yes, sir," Higgins said, looking immensely relieved to have a new mission that didn't involve arresting his boss's boss. The two officers turned and walked toward Martha. Her face transitioned from triumph to confusion, and then to a pale, ghostly white as they approached her. "Ma'am," Higgins said, his voice loud enough for all of us to hear, "we need to talk to you about your 911 call. You reported a gang hanging out in a garage?" "Yes, look at them," Martha stammered, pointing at us. "Ma'am, that gang consists of the captain of the North Precinct, the assistant district attorney, 12 detectives, and about 15 off-duty officers. You just called 911 on a police department-sanctioned social gathering." Martha's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She looked at me, then at the badge hanging from Miller's neck, then at the captain. The realization hit her like a physical weight. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time in 3 years, she went completely silent. "We could cite you for filing a false police report." "Martha!" I called out from the driveway, not unkindly, but firmly. "But I think we can settle for a little neighborly peace and quiet from now on. What do you say?" She didn't answer. She turned around and walked back into her house, her movements stiff and robotic. She didn't look back. The rookies stayed for a few minutes, apologizing profusely. We gave them some brisket to go. They were working the graveyard shift, after all, and sent them on their way. As the cruisers pulled away, the garage erupted in laughter. "I've seen a lot of things," Miller said, leaning on his pool cue. "But I've never seen a Karen try to swat a whole precinct. That's a bold strategy, Cotton." "She's going to be quiet for a long time," Sarah said, smiling. "I think you just won the HOA wars, Leo." We turned the music back up just a tiny bit and finished the night in peace. The best part wasn't the victory, though. It was the feeling of the community we had built. In a world that often felt chaotic and heavy, That garage was a bubble of safety and friendship. The next morning, I went out to get the mail. I saw Martha coming out to get hers at the same time. Usually, she would glare or find something to complain about, a stray leaf on my driveway or the way my mailbox leaned. This time, she saw me, tucked her head down, and practically ran back inside her house. I looked at my lawn. It wasn't perfect. There was a single dandelion growing near the edge of the sidewalk. I reached down, plucked it, and smiled. The neighborhood was quiet, exactly the way Martha wanted it. But the power dynamic of Silver Oaks had shifted forever. The garage party became a legend in the precinct. But for me, it was the night the HOA, Karen finally met the law, and the law was having a really good time.